The courtroom buzzed with stale tension, the air thick with the scent of cheap disinfectant and judgment. Judge Harold Whitmore leaned back in his leather throne, lips curled into a smirk as he peered down at the lanky black teen shuffling awkwardly in front of him. "Let me get this straight," the judge drawled, drumming his fingers on the bench like a bored pianist. "You're here to defend this individual?" His eyes flicked to the disheveled man in handcuffs, a single father, accused of stealing bread, before landing back on the teenager. The gallery tittered nervously. Everyone knew Whitmore's reputation, a gavel-wielding relic who'd built his career on harsh sentences and harsher prejudices. But today, his arrogance was about to meet its match. 17-year-old Malik Johnson stood straighter, his crisp suit sleeves slightly too short, his voice steady as he replied, "Yes, Your Honor, and I'd appreciate it if you addressed my client with respect." The judge's laugh boomed, cruel and booming, echoing off the cracked plaster walls. "Respect? Kid, you're in way over your head. Come back when you've got a law degree or at least a driver's license." But Malik wasn't just any kid. 2 weeks earlier, he'd been rushing to his after-school job when he spotted her. A pregnant woman, pale as chalk, gripping a bus stop pole like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Without thinking, he'd offered his seat. She'd thanked him with tears in her eyes, pressing a crumpled note into his palm before disappearing into the crowd. That note, a hastily scribbled address and a time, room 407, City Courthouse, 9 a.m. Tell them Evelyn sent you. Curiosity and the 20 bill tucked inside had brought him here. Now, standing in this stuffy courtroom, Malik clenched his fists, replaying Evelyn's whispered words. "They'll underestimate you. Use it." Back in the present, Judge Whitmore adjusted his glasses, squinting at Malik's homemade motion. "To dismiss. This is amateur hour," he sneered, waving the paper like it smelled bad. "You really think you can play lawyer?" Malik's client, Mr. Rivera, slumped deeper into his chair. But Malik's mind raced. 3 nights of poring over law books at the library, cross-referencing statutes, finding the loophole Whitmore himself had created in a 1998 case. "Your Honor," Malik said louder now, "if you'd read page 3, you'll see this prosecution violates your own ruling in State v. Caldwell. Unless you're suggesting your past judgments don't matter?" The room froze. Whitmore's face flushed beet red. Somewhere in the back, a phone camera started recording. Meanwhile, in the gallery, a woman in a faded floral dress clutched, her purse tighter. Evelyn hadn't planned to come, but guilt and the memory of Malik's kindness had dragged her here. Her note had been a Hail Mary, a desperate attempt to balance the scales after years of staying silent about Whitmore's corruption. Now, watching Malik dismantle the judge's ego with nothing but logic and a library card, she allowed herself a sliver of hope, until she spotted him, a hulking bailiff lurking near the exit, the same one who'd threatened her when she'd tried to report Whitmore's backroom deals. Their eyes met. He smiled, slow and venomous, patting the handcuffs on his belt. Back at the bench, Whitmore slammed his gavel, spittle flying. "Enough! This circus ends now. Case dismissed." The crowd erupted. Mr. Rivera hugged Malik, sobbing, into his shoulder. But as reporters surged forward, Malik locked eyes with Evelyn across the room. She mouthed 2 words. "Run, now." Before he could move, the bailiff's meaty hand clamped down on his arm. "Judge wants to see you in chambers," he growled, privately. Up close, Malik spotted the faded gang tattoo peeking above. The man's collar. The same symbol spray-painted outside his apartment last week. Coincidence? Whitmore's voice slithered over the chaos. "Bring the boy genius along. We'll discuss his future." And as Malik was led away, Evelyn's scream tore through the hallway, drowned out by the slamming of a heavy oak door. The bailiff's grip felt like iron, his fingers digging into Malik's arm as he shoved him down a narrow hallway lined with peeling paint. Judge Whitmore's private chambers loomed ahead, the door slightly ajar, shadows flickering under the threshold. Malik's heart hammered against his ribs, but he forced himself to breathe. "Use it!" Evelyn's voice echoed in his head. They'll underestimate you. He glanced at the bailiff's tattoo again, a coiled snake with dagger fangs. He'd seen that symbol before, spray-painted on the dumpster behind his building the night his neighbor vanished. No one talked about it, not out loud. Inside the chambers, the air smelled like cigars and old money. Judge Whitmore sat behind a mahogany desk, cluttered with gold-plated pens and a framed photo of himself shaking hands with the mayor. His smirk was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. "Sit," he barked, nodding to a rickety chair. Malik hesitated, but the bailiff shoved him down. "You've got nerve, kid," Whitmore said, leaning forward. "Citing my case against me? Where'd you even find that, public library?" He chuckled, but it sounded hollow. Malik stayed silent, scanning the room. A filing cabinet in the corner had a drawer slightly open, stuffed with folders labeled "Confidential." A landline phone blinked with voicemails, and behind Whitmore's head, mounted like a trophy, was a black and white photo of a younger Whitmore standing beside a man Malik recognized, a local mob boss who'd been shot dead. "Last year. You think you're clever," Whitmore continued, tapping a folder on his desk. Malik glimpsed his own name scrawled across it. "But let me tell you how this ends. You walk out of here, forget this little stunt, and maybe I don't mention your extracurricular activities to child services." He paused, letting the threat hang. "Your mama's sick, isn't she? Shame if her Medicaid got delayed." Malik's throat tightened. His mother's face flashed in his mind, her tired smile, the way she hid her coughs behind her sleeve when the bills piled. But he couldn't back down, not now. "What do you want?" he asked, voice steady. Whitmore's eyes glinted. "Smart boy, you're going to drop this case. Let Mr. Rivera take the plea deal, and you'll stop playing lawyer before someone gets hurt." Before Malik could respond, the bailiff's radio crackled to life. "Judge, we've got a situation. In the lobby, some lady's causing a scene. Says she's got proof of judicial misconduct." Whitmore's jaw twitched. "Handle it," he snapped at the bailiff, "and make it quiet." The bailiff hesitated, glancing at Malik. "What about the kid? He's not going anywhere," Whitmore said, locking eyes with Malik. "Are you?" The moment the door clicked shut, Malik lunged for the filing cabinet. His hands trembled as he yanked open the drawer. Folders spilled out, cases dismissed, evidence lost, witness names redacted. And then he saw it, a ledger, dates, amounts, initials, payments to WS from something called the Serpent's Hand. Malik's blood ran cold. That symbol, the snake with dagger fangs, stamped on every page. Footsteps thudded outside. Malik shoved the ledger into his backpack, heart racing. The door flew open. 2 weeks earlier, Malik hadn't known any of this. He'd been too busy surviving. After school, he'd biked to the nursing home where his mother worked double shifts as a janitor, bringing her the leftover sandwiches she forgot to eat. Nights, he'd study law books under a flickering desk lamp, drowning out the gunshots outside with Beethoven streaming through cracked headphones. His mom called it his phase. But Malik knew the truth. The system was rigged, and he'd watched it chew up his father, his cousin, his best friend Jamal. Law was the only weapon he had. The day he met Evelyn changed everything. She'd been clutching her swollen belly on that bus bench, her face pale and sweaty. Malik didn't think, he just acted. When she pressed the note into his hand, her fingers were ice cold. "You don't know me," she'd whispered. "But I know what you're capable of. Please, stop him." He'd almost tossed the note, but then he'd Googled Judge Whitmore. The articles were bland, awards, charity galas. But the comment sections told a different story. Fixes cases for the rich. Ruined my brother's life. Watch out if you're black in his courtroom. Malik showed up to room 407 expecting, he didn't know what. A trap? A joke? Instead, he found Mr. Rivera, a quiet man with calloused hands and a daughter's crayon drawing tucked in his pocket. "They say I stole," he'd told Malik, eyes wet. "But the security footage, it's gone. My word against the store owners." Now, in Whitmore's office, the judge loomed over Malik. Looking for something? He hissed, snatching the backpack. Malik's stomach dropped as Whitmore pulled out the ledger. For a heartbeat. The room went still. Then Whitmore laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. You really thought you could steal from me? A child playing spy? Malik's mind raced. Distract him. Why'd you do it? He blurted. You had power, respect. Why sell out to some gang? Whitmore's face darkened. You think this city runs on respect? He spat the word like poison. It runs on money, on favors. The serpent's hand doesn't ask questions, they get results. He flipped open the ledger, running a finger down the page. But you're a loose end. The door burst. Open. Evelyn stood there, hair wild, clutching a stack of papers. Let him go, Harold. I've got copies everywhere. The press, the DA. Whitmore moved faster than Malik expected. He grabbed Evelyn by the wrist, yanking her inside. The bailiff appeared behind her, grinning. You, Whitmore snarled at Evelyn. I should have known you'd crawl out of whatever hole I left you in. Evelyn's voice shook. You left me to die when I stopped being useful. But he's not like us. She nodded to Malik. He's better. Malik's hand inched toward the phone on the desk. One button. 911. But the bailiff stepped closer, cracking his knuckles. Whitmore tossed the ledger into a shredder. No proof, no case, just your word against mine. He turned to Malik. And who'd believe a delinquent who trespassed in a judge's office, especially after his tragic accident? The bailiff lunged. Malik ducked, scrambling under the desk. Evelyn screamed as the bailiff grabbed her, but Malik was already moving. Toward the window, the fire escape, the alley below. He jumped just as the bailiff's fist swung. The last thing he heard before his feet hit pavement was Evelyn's voice, raw with fury. Run, Malik. Find the warehouse on 9th Street. A gunshot cracked. Glass shattered above him. Malik ran, the ledger burning a hole in his hoodie pocket. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Or maybe it was just the blood roaring in his ears. He didn't look back. 3 blocks away, in a cramped apartment, Malik's mother frowned at the TV. The news showed a blurry cell phone video, her son standing tall in a courtroom, outsmarting a judge. The chyron read, Teen Prodigy or Public Menace. She reached for her phone, hands trembling, and dialed Malik's number. It went straight to voicemail. Baby, she whispered to the empty room. What have you gotten into? Across town, Evelyn sat in a holding cell, her cheek throbbing where the bailiff had struck her. But she smiled faintly, tracing the words she'd carved into the bench with her fingernail. He's coming for you. And in a shadowy warehouse on 9th Street, a man with a snake tattoo watched the news footage, crushing a cigarette under his boot. Find the kid, he told his men. Alive. The boss wants to talk. Somewhere in the darkness, a phone rang. The screen lit up with a single word. Judge. The warehouse on 9th Street loomed like a rotten tooth against the night sky, its windows boarded up, the faint hum of generators leaking through cracked concrete. Malik crouched behind a dumpster, the ledger digging into his ribs like a warning. Evelyn's words buzzed in his skull. Find the warehouse. But why? The place reeked of diesel and decay, and the 2 men smoking by the loading dock both bore the snake tattoo. Malik's fingers tightened around his phone. 3 missed calls from his mom. He couldn't drag her into this. Not yet. Inside, the warehouse buzzed with activity. Crates stamped with fragile were pried open, revealing not glassware, but stacks of cash and unmarked pill bottles. A man in a tailored suit, the one from Whitmore's photo, paced near a flickering security monitor. The kid's got the ledger, he snapped into his phone. Clean this up, Harold, or I'll feed you to the press myself. Evelyn pressed her forehead against the cold jail cell bars, listening. The night shift guard, a rookie with a chipped front tooth, kept glancing at her. She recognized the look. Guilt, not malice. You're the one who helped the kid, aren't you? He muttered, sliding a lukewarm coffee through the slot. They're transferring you to county. At dawn, safer there. Or quieter to disappear, Evelyn said softly. She'd seen this playbook before. Harold's reach extended far beyond courtrooms. but the guard's hesitation gave her an opening. "What's your name?" "Danny." "Danny, you have a sister? Girlfriend?" Evelyn's voice frayed at the edges. "Because they'll come for anyone who matters to you. That's how this works." Danny's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" "Get a message to Malik Johnson. Tell him the warehouse isn't the target. It's the delivery route. They're moving product tonight. Riverfront, Dock 12. Malik's mom, Diane, paced their tiny kitchen, the TV muted but flashing images of her son's face. She'd called every hospital, every precinct. Nothing. When the knock came, she grabbed a frying pan, heart racing. But it wasn't the serpent's hand. It was Mr. Rivera clutching a paper bag of tamales. "For you," he said, eyes downcast. "Your boy, he saved me. I want to help." Diane's composure cracked. "How?" "The police won't listen. The news thinks he's some troublemaker." Mr. Rivera pulled out a burner phone. "My cousin. She cleans houses. One of her clients is a reporter. She's investigative." He scrolled to a contact, Maria Torres, Daily Sentinel. "Call her, but rapido, before they bury the truth." Malik's legs burned as he sprinted along the river, the ledger flapping against his chest. Dock 12 was lit up like a carnival, men unloading crates onto a fishing boat named the Marigold. He crouched behind a pallet, filming with his phone. This was bigger than he'd imagined. The crates bore the logo of a local pharmacy chain. Whitmore wasn't just taking bribes. He was funneling stolen opioids through the courts, wiping records clean. A hand clamped over Malik's mouth. "Don't scream," a woman hissed. Maria Torres, press badge glinting under her hoodie, yanked him behind a shipping container. "I got a tip from a janitor. You're either the bravest kid in the city or the dumbest." Before Malik could answer, headlights sliced through the fog. Two black SUVs skidded to a halt. The bailiff stepped out, followed by men in ski masks. Maria shoved the ledger into her bag. "Go, I'll distract them." "Why?" Malik whispered. "Because I've been chasing this story for years," she said, tossing him her keys. "My car's the red Civic on Pier 3. There's a safe house address in the GPS. Go." Judge Whitmore sat in his study, bourbon swirling in his glass as the news played. His hands didn't shake. They never did. But his reflection in the window looked hollow. The serpent's hand doesn't ask questions. He'd told himself that for decades. But the kid. Malik's face reminded him of the boy he'd once been, hungry, sharp, believing the law was sacred. His landline. "Thank you." The warehouse boss's voice was a serrated blade. "Your little protege just exposed Dock 12. Clean. This. Up." Whitmore closed his eyes. He knew what came next. Reaching into his desk, he pulled out a revolver, its weight familiar. But, instead of loading it, he stared at the faded photo tucked beneath. A woman with Evelyn's eyes, holding a baby he'd sworn to protect. A lifetime of bad choices, and now 2 lives hung in the balance. The son he'd failed, and the boy who'd outsmarted him. Maria's car reeked of coffee and ambition. Malik fumbled with the GPS, the safe house pin dropping in the worst part of town. But as the engine roared to life, his phone lit up. A text from an unknown number. "Dock 12 compromised. They're tracking you. Ditch the car. D. Danny? Evelyn. No time to guess." Malik swerved into an alley, tires screeching. Behind him, sirens wailed. Or were they gang cars? He didn't wait to find out. Grabbing the ledger, he bolted into the labyrinth of boarded-up buildings, the shadows swallowing him whole. In the warehouse office, the boss lit a cigar, watching security feeds. The kid was good, he'd give him that. But everyone had a weakness. He zoomed in on a screenshot from Malik's Instagram. Diane Johnson, smiling in her nursing scrubs, standing outside St. Mary's Hospital. "Send a team," he told his men. "The mother's working the night shift. Bring her to me." Evelyn stared at the ceiling of the speeding police transport van. Danny sat up front, knuckles white on the wheel. "Change of plan," he'd said. "County's not safe." She didn't ask where they were really going. Instead, she palmed the screwdriver he'd dropped near her seat. Old habits die hard. Malik's breath fogged in the abandoned subway tunnel. The ledger was useless without someone to trust. But as he scrolled through Maria's files, photos of Whitmore at mob funerals, evidence logs gone missing, he realized the truth. The judge was a pawn. The real kingpin was someone no one dared name. His burner phone buzzed. A voicemail from his mom, time-stamped an hour ago. "Baby, I'm staying late at the hospital. Don't worry about me, just be safe." But the background noise wasn't hospital beeps. It was the muffled roar of the river. And Doc 12's distinct foghorn. Malik's blood turned to ice. They had her. Somewhere above, a train rattled past, its light slicing through the dark. Malik stood, the ledger in one hand, Maria's keys in the other. They wanted a war? Fine, but he'd rewrite the rules. Diane sat perfectly still in the warehouse office, the boss's cigar smoke stinging her eyes. "You raised a fighter," he said, sliding a phone toward her. "Call him, or the next body they pull from the river won't be his." She dialed, her voice steady. "Malik, it's Mom. I need you to listen." A gun cocked behind her. Evelyn jammed the screwdriver into the van's brake line. As Danny cursed, swerving, she lunged for the door. Concrete scraped her knees, but she ran, back toward the city, toward the only person who could end this. And in the shadows of the courthouse, Judge Whitmore pressed the revolver to his temple, the weight of his sins crushing him. But the click that echoed wasn't the hammer. It was the chamber, empty. Laughing bitterly, he tossed the gun aside. Redemption was a myth, but maybe, just maybe, he could tip the scales. Pulling out his phone, he texted a number he'd sworn to forget. The warehouse, midnight, come alone. The recipient, a retired detective with a grudge and a badge.